Hey, good morning, everybody. So this is going to be the watch list for Monday, October 28th. And as always, I'm going to start out with Market Watch for the overall economic news for the upcoming week. Now, they have changed their overall menu. So when you go to their website, they've moved everything into a new layout. So you will now go to this market data and tools, and then you will go to the U.S. economic calendar. Okay. And that's where we're going to be. So starting next week, Monday, there's absolutely nothing going on, nothing scheduled. So should be a good thing. On Tuesday, the 29th, a couple things you're going to want to be aware of while the market is open. The Case-Shiller Home Price Index. So is the cost of housing going up or down? As I've mentioned before, housing is the number one contributor to overall inflation on a percentage basis. We're also going to get consumer confidence and job openings 30 minutes into the market open. Wednesday, we're going to get some ADP employment data. We're also going to have GDP. We're going to have the trade balance. All of this is happening before the market opens, which is great. And then just watch for your wild card with pending home sales. Now, this has been also struggling with the home builders with mortgage rates going back up above 6 and 7%. Thursday, we have personal income, personal spending, PCE, core PCE. So a lot of data dropping. Initial jobless claims, we'll definitely want to be watching this one on Halloween. And then the Chicago PMI 15 minutes into the market open. And then again, Friday, we have more hourly wages. So is it costing companies more money per hour to pay their employees? And then we're also going to get construction spending and ISM. So as always, within the first 30 minutes of the market open, I just advise you sit back and watch on these days that have big news announcements. Now, the good point is most of this is being done before the market open. Next week, I do expect that we're going to have some elevated volatility. Two reasons. One, we are getting closer to the election. So as the election nears, we're going to have more price movement in a hedge as to who they think is going to win the election. Right now, good, bad, or indifferent, the markets are pricing in a Trump win. We will see if that holds. If that's the case, I do expect that the energy sector will rip higher, as will the financials. So keep an eye out for those two things. If Harris gets elected, I really don't see anything ripping higher one way or the other. Probably will stay the status quo because we will have more of the same, which is a lot of government intervention. Trump gets elected, as we've seen with him before. He is all about removing restrictions, getting the government out of business, letting capitalism take over, and therefore you will see a reaction one way or the other. Now, will we get the results on election night? My guess is probably not, so you're going to have to be patient. But a couple of things I do want to talk about this morning. Next week is a big week for tech earnings. Now, the NASDAQ 100, and I'm going to look at that in a minute, is back to its all-time highs. We know that SPY has made new all-time highs and is backed off, and you can see my price levels. And then my price levels may adjust a little bit throughout the week, but I want to talk about how I set them. So, a couple things. One, I always start on the daily, and what I'm looking for are areas where the market has had a pivot high to a pivot low, and we are holding support with at least 2 or 3 touch points. So you'll see down here, 565 is a very strong level where we held it, we held it, we held it, and it was off of a pivot, right? We were up, we came down, we pivoted up, we came down, we pivot up. 3 strong touch points on the daily. You'll also note that at this level here with my 575, this was a reject, and then this was a support and a support. So we have a pivot down, a pivot up, we hold, we move higher, we come down and test it, and then we move back through the level. The other one that you've been seeing on a reoccurring basis with me too is this 580.33. Now you might be looking at it on the daily and saying, really not seeing what you're talking about here, Bill. So that's where we're going to go from a daily down to a 4-hour time frame. When you get to the 4-hour time frame, you can clearly see how this 580.33 has been creating this channel where the market has either fallen below it and then it becomes resistance, or it comes down to it and it ends up being support. So what I will do is start on the daily, go to the 4-hour. You can clearly see 585.27, resistance, 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 resistance. We cannot clear that level. This 580.33 really becomes apparent on a 1-hour time frame over multiple days that we are just trading, oscillating between this channel. Now, you will also note that if we don't touch the actual top or the bottom of the channel, then we really don't have a trade. And I think that's where so many of you are getting caught up and chopped up in this market, is that you're taking trades between channels. Whereas if you would just sit and literally be patient for the overall technical level to fail, push down to the next level, push back up, break above it, go higher, come back down to the level, it doesn't hold, it flushes lower. So all of my trades are being taken around what happened in the past. Now, if you want to add a couple of interim levels, you could just say, well, what's happened over the last 5 days? Can I see something that I might want to pay attention to? Well, sure. We're not pressing up to this 585.27 because we've had a little bit more weakness. But you will note that you could put an interim at the highs as to where were we before over the last couple of days. So this is something I'll pay attention to. Pre-market high, pre-market low. So I want to put those on my chart. I'll also want to know what was the prior day high. Okay? So you would make that a different color. Now note, that was from Tuesday of this week. The prior day high from the day before on Thursday really was all the way down here. But what is going on with the prior days throughout the week to say, could we push back up to this liquidity level with strength and then fail it? So clearly, we got back up to this 584.50, I think round numbers and odd numbers, 584, 584.50, 585, 585.50, so on and so forth. Okay? So we pushed up to this to the penny, and then what did they do? They failed it. So another opportunity for a short. The other thing you want to watch too, again, so if I was watching the prior day high from the day before, and we lose it even from the day before, another good opportunity to watch for a short. Now, I'm not going short just because we failed yesterday's prior day high. I'm waiting for it to see, look at how close the levels are. 580.89, 580.33. I want to see weakness going into my level of 580.33. And then once we break the level and we hold it, and we can look at this on a 1-minute time frame, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better, where what we did is we came down, we retested it, and then we failed. And then we came up and tested it again and failed. Came up a third time and failed. So you could have taken 1-put trade, 2-put trade, 3-put trade. Why? 580.33 is a very strong level of either support or resistance. So when you are seeing my levels throughout the week, what I'm expecting to happen is, and let's look at this just from Friday alone. I'm going to keep this very simple, and I've done this before with you guys. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at where was the market yesterday on the market open. And I can actually show you better right here. So I had my 585 as a reject. I had my 580 as a bounce. That's what I put in the overall Discord. Okay. We know again that the market came up to the prior high from earlier in the week, and I could technically chart that, again, what I just did with you on the other screen, so I know where I could be watching for a reject. But what I am expecting the market to do on the open, and let's pretend that the market hasn't opened yet, but you are looking at, right now, the pre-market. So I have my lines. These are on my daily, my 4-hour, my 1-hour. The market is going to do one of a couple things. So how do I load my charts? One, when I'm an active trader, I'm going to want to take calls if we bounce at 580.33. So I'll have the 581 calls loaded. I'm going to want to take puts if we get up here to this 585, 584.46 and we have some weakness, I'm going to want to take the 584 puts or the 583 puts to come down. So pre-market, I'm between levels. I don't have any trade pre-market. I can't have a bias of are we going higher or are we going lower? I don't know what we're going to do. Sure, we're trending up, but one of two things is going to happen, and then those two things are going to turn into four things. So first off, I think the market's going to come down to my level, and then I think it's going to be higher. That's option number one. Option number two is I think the market is going to go higher, and then it's going to reject and go lower. Now, those are the first two. Once we get out of these first two scenarios, there's two more. One, I think it's going to break above this level, use it as support, and then go higher. Or I believe we are going to break below my level, come up, use it as resistance, and head lower. These are your four options. But in the morning before the market opens, it's a retracement, bounce higher. It is a rip higher, drop lower. Until you get above these levels, which were resistance, will now be used as support. So if we go ahead and we watch, what did the market do throughout the day yesterday once the market opened is I need to sit and wait until it actually hits a level. Once it hits my level, now I need to pay attention to say, do I want this scenario to now play out? Or do we have too much strength where I'm going to break above and then go higher? So you'll see that the level ends up holding. And then what do? We ended up failing lower. Okay, so that's where you could have been in puts. Now, where are we dropping to? The market is going to chase liquidity. What is liquidity? Liquidity is where did it sell off before or where did it bounce in the past? That's what we're watching. Now you're going to get some oscillation in between the levels, right? But if you got puts at the top there where there was a potential reject off of a prior weekly, daily high, where is it chasing? Liquidity. Now, here's my next decision. Do we bounce here and go back higher or do we fail this and go lower? So while I had the 581 calls pulled up, right now I was in 580, 583 puts. I could stay in the puts that I'm in from up here, but if I got out of them because I got a little nervous or this was taking too long, now I'm going to look for the 579 puts if this fails. If not, I'm back in the overall 581 calls. What happens? We can't hold the level and we flush lower. Therefore, there's another trade. Now we reject it one more time to then push again even lower. And then what will the market do? It's going to try to retrace that liquidity back to that what was support, which is now resistance. So you can see why my 580.33 number was so darn important this entire week. But where did it come from? It came from a prior point in time. And I'm just going to let the computer play out the rest of this. But now we're in the post hours and the day is done. Now, does this 580.33 go away? Absolutely not. It doesn't. It's going to stay here. Why is it going to stay here? Because I want to see what the market does with this level on Monday. Now, mind you, you can't just be looking at this on its own. You need to be watching QQQ as well. So I have my levels on QQQ, and ironically, look what is happening when we are rejecting this level right here, okay? So we knew that SPY was actually weaker than the Qs, and the reason being it was weaker is because of Tesla. But when we started to trend down here, what's happening with QQQ? It's trending down as well. How did I know that we were probably going to go break this next level right here to the downside? Well, look at exactly where we are at on the Qs breaking its level to the next level down, right? It's doing the same thing. So when they are breaking levels and not holding, that is your green light that this level is breaking, simultaneously this level is breaking? Let me show it to you right here. This level broke to the downside. What happened at that exact same time? This level's breaking to the downside. We're right here. Look, they line up. That's why you have to watch SPY and QQQ simultaneously. Okay? So, a little bit longer than what I would normally do, but you guys are getting chopped up in the middle here and you're losing money, and it's because you're impatient. Wait for the level. Sit on your hands. Don't do anything in here. Don't do anything in here. Wait for it to come to the level, fail the level. Wait for it to come to the level, bounce the level. Where did it go to? Back up here to liquidity. Now here's a short position going down. Perfect textbook trading, technical analysis. We fail the level, we come down close to the next level. Where do? We retrace back up to the level, and where do we head? Lower, back down to the level. So please be patient. This is why traders have 80 and 90% win rates. This is why you will have more green trades than red trades. I will promise you, if you have red trades and you go back and do what I just did to say, why did I take the trade? And here you have confirmation, right? You're rejecting. Your 9 is below your 21. You're now below VWAP. Your 9 is below your 21. You're below VWAP. Great environment for puts. I mean, this was clearly trending down. So again, we got a lot of news. I just kind of looked at QQQ with you. You saw that. Here's my levels. You can see them. They're on the charts. I post them in the Discord. So it's not like I'm making this stuff up in the middle of the day, right? It's just how it works. So again, daily, 4 hour, 1 hour. You can chart on a lower time frame. I just don't really think that it's necessary, but I'm looking for multiple touch points. You can see, why do I have 498.44? Reject 1, 2, 3, 4. Then they tried to use it as support, and then they rejected it. And then where are we coming down to? This overall 494.45. Reject, 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 reject. We hold it as support. We use it as a support level here. Then we chop around it, but it's supporting, 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 right? And so you're trying to see visually where are the channels with some interim support and resistance that you can hang on to. So this 494 is important. We fail 494.21. I think we're going to 491.29. Why? Because it bounced, it bounced, it bounced, right? It was rejected, bounced here, bounced here, bounced here, bounced here. The higher the level you play, daily, 4 hour and 1 hour, the stronger it's going to be. Okay, let's look at a couple of names real quick. I'm way over on time, but I just think it's important. Meta is going to be announcing this week. You can see, again, we're on a 1 hour time frame. We're currently in a bit of a downtrend, right? But remember, we also want to be cognizant of gap fills. We only chart the gaps on a daily time frame. We do not chart them on lowers. So we're going to want to say, where is a gap fill? Well, there is a gap on the daily for Meta that was created between Thursday and Friday. That means it will act as a magnet, whether it has strong or weak earnings. Okay. There's another gap right down here, right below it. There's a lot of gaps on this one. This is not common, you guys. So you want to be cognizant, because if for some reason they disappoint on earnings, it's going to be a magnet to go to the first gap, fill it. Go to the next gap, fill it. Go to the next gap, fill it. Until we get down to where we have really good concrete support. So where is a really good concrete support in Meta? And this is turning into more of a technical analysis class, but it's okay. I think it's important. You're looking for, where did you have strong movement from pivot highs to pivot lows? Well, I know from an overall resistance perspective, we're going to have resistance right here, right? This was a pivot high. The other thing that I'm going to want to watch for is, where did we have an overall pivot low? Well, we have a clear pivot low here. So from this channel down to the upside, this was the high, this was the low. I'm going to want to pay attention to that. Do I need to pay attention to, this over here with this pivot low here to this pivot high? No. But what you will note is that this pivot high here lines up directly with the bottom of this gap fill. Okay, so on a daily basis, these are my very high level daily time frames. I would also probably just want to be cognizant of what are we doing right here. Why here? You'll see resistance, resistance, support, 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 support. We have a lot of daily support at 562.07. I'm going to do the same thing on the 4-hour. Do I see anything different? Am I missing anything? Doesn't look like it. Looks pretty good to me, right? We're kind of trending back down. 562.07. We lose 562.07. I think we're going to 544.23. Let's do it on a 1-hour. Am I missing anything? No, not really. I look pretty good, right? Now, what I need to understand is that I don't have a overall bounce until I get to 562.07. Now, you could get a bounce off the top of the gap fill, which ironically is right where we're at. So, even though the gap will act as a magnet, it will also act as support to hold the line here to say we are going to go higher. So, what would I ideally like to see us? Get into the gap, fill it, come back down here to 562.07 because they love to use this as a line of support to then take calls. So, what I would do is I would be watching for a pullback to here to go higher. Or what I would be doing is watching a failure of this to drop, retest, go to the next gap. But I'm not taking a trade unless I see heavy support here to push this higher. And I would be watching the overall market structure. So I'd be watching Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. Are all the tech stocks moving higher or are they not? Okay, let's take a look at one more. Google has had overall relative weakness compared to the overall tech sector. Now I'm going to start again on a daily time frame. This one is compressing. It's going to have to break one way or the other. We have a lot of gaps on this one. So you can see that we have this huge gap up above. So again, their DOJ of a potential breakup has been a big issue. There might be one small tiny gap right here, but you'll also note that this is acting as an area of resistance right here. Resistance, 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 resistance. We want to see resistance where it's going to push down, come up, and test it. So what I would be watching for this one, again, we're going to have to just kind of see what their earnings have to say on a go-forward basis, but we're chopping in a range. So I'm not going to want to take a long entry in this until we can break out of this overall channel. And you can kind of see the channel right here, right? It's a little wide, but we're between 160 and 169. So it's just oscillating here. It breaks below, it comes back, and it stays now in this channel. Calls or puts on this one. What do? Well, right now you do nothing. You don't have a trade because you're not at the top of the channel. You're not at the bottom of the channel. You're in the middle. So if you're going to take a trade here, you're guessing. You don't know if it's going to go up. You don't know if it's going to go down. Well, let's look at this on a 5-minute time frame. What's it doing? Nothing. So this is why you'll get caught up in options with a theta burn because it's not moving. You need movement to make money. Okay, let's do one more. Apple, these again, prior price levels. I didn't take them away. They've been here. You'll see we use 232.92 over and over. Support, 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 resistance, support, support. They're holding at this level, right? And then what happens when we fail it? They're coming back up and now it's resistance. So what do I do with Apple? Well, let's look at it on a 1-hour time frame. Here's my channel. Don't really have a trade. Why? Because we're not at 232.92. We're not at 227. Now, if the market just decides to start to sell off all of a sudden for whatever reason, then you could probably say if we have weakness, then we're going to head lower toward 227. You'll see that we got down here to 227 and change, 227 and change, go to the left, over and over and over again. So it's going to act as a magnet to come back down to this 227. But if the market has strength, then what you're going to want to do is here's your two plays. You're going to want to wait for it to come up here and reject lower. Or your second option is you want it to come up here, retest, break higher. Okay? But you don't have a trade until you get to 232.92. Now, I know I'm preaching a lot this morning, but I get very, very frustrated when you guys are not using technical analysis to give you the opportunity to win 80% of the trades. That's why I have outlasted 95% of everybody else. It is sometimes just sitting here and doing nothing. In a 30-day calendar month, the market will give you about 6 to 7 really good days to trade. The other days, nah. You're just going to get chopped up. You're going to lose money. Do you got to show up and watch? Yes. Do you got to show up and be attentive? Yes. Do you have to show up and learn? Absolutely. But do you have to take a trade? The answer is no. So if you're not seeing a setup that you really like, stop choosing the dopamine fix that your brain is giving you and the exhilaration and the high, the contact high that you're getting by being in a trade, and choose discipline. Okay? So, watch this week. There's going to be a lot of tech earnings. It's going to definitely move QQQ one way or the other, and use Confluence trading. So if you're trading SPY, you better be watching the Qs. When you're trading Qs, you better be watching SPY, and then know why the Qs are moving. Why were the Qs moving this week? There was one answer, and it wasn't NVIDIA. It was Tesla. Look at this thing. This week, it was up over 25%. It was at a low of 211 all the way up to 267. So you should not have been looking to short the Qs with the strength in Tesla. Or if you are going to short the Qs, for example, you should have been watching relative weakness in Tesla to play through. So hopefully this was a really good lesson, not only on technical analysis, but also how you can improve your overall win rate. So with that, folks, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And if you like this, smash the like button on the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. And we will all talk next week. Take care.